The gunshot that ended Helena Parker's first marriage echoed through the canyon so loud she swore the whole of Buffalo, Wyoming heard her husband's betrayal die with him. But it was the rope that snapped during her second chance at love that taught her some falls are meant to be permanent. She stood at the edge of the makeshift cemetery on a cold November morning in 1878, her black dress whipping against her legs as the wind howled down from the Bighorn Mountains. The preacher's words were lost to the gale, but it did not matter because Helena had stopped listening to promises about eternal rest and peaceful reunions years ago. Marcus had been a good man, everyone said so, a rancher who had courted her with patience after she had buried her first husband Thomas 3 years prior. Marcus never asked about the circumstances of Thomas's death, never pressed when she woke screaming in the night, never demanded more than she could give. And for that kindness, she had tried to love him, had worn his ring and shared his bed and tended his home with dutiful hands if not a willing heart. But love built on gratitude was a weak foundation, and when the rope securing the hay pulley snapped and sent Marcus tumbling 20 feet into the barn below, Helena felt something crack inside her that had nothing to do with grief. She felt relief, sharp and shameful, followed immediately by a crushing guilt that threatened to buckle her knees right there beside his fresh grave. She was 26 years old and already twice widowed, and the women of Buffalo whispered that she carried a curse, that men who loved Helena Parker were marked for death. The truth was simpler and somehow worse. She had never learned to love them back. Thomas had seemed like salvation when she was 18, a deputy with a silver tongue and promises of security. Her parents had died of fever that winter, leaving her alone with debts she could not pay. Thomas paid them, married her within a month, and showed his true nature before the ink dried on the marriage certificate. His fists taught her that salvation could wear many disguises, and when he came home drunk one August night in 1875, when his hands wrapped around her throat and squeezed, she had reached for the gun he kept beside their bed and made herself a widow. Self-defense, the sheriff ruled, though the women still whispered. Marcus had been different, gentle, but she had married him because staying alone in Buffalo meant drowning in speculation and judgment. She had married him to prove she could be normal, could be the kind of woman who recovered and moved forward and believed in second chances. She had not believed in second chances, not really. She had only believed in survival. The funeral ended and Helena walked back to what had been Marcus's ranch alone, her boots crunching through the early snow. The house felt too large, too empty, and she knew she could not stay. The ranch would go to Marcus's brother in Montana. The marriage had been too brief for her to inherit, and Helena found she did not care. She had some money saved, enough for a fresh start, and Buffalo had nothing left for her but ghosts and gossip. She would leave at first light, she decided. Head south to Cheyenne or maybe west to California. Somewhere no one knew her name or her history. Somewhere she could simply be Helena, unattached and unburdened. But the West had a way of laughing at plans. The knock came just after sunset, sharp and insistent against the ranch house door. Helena considered ignoring it, but curiosity and years of frontier hospitality won out. She opened the door to find a man she had never seen before, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that curled slightly beneath his worn hat and eyes the color of summer sky. He was leading a limping horse and looked like he had ridden through hell to get here. "Madam," he said, touching the brim of his hat, "name is William Ellis. My horse threw a shoe about 5 miles back and went lame. Saw the light from your windows and hoped you might have a barn where I could stable him for the night. I can pay." His voice was rough but polite, and Helena noticed the way he kept his distance, respectful, not presuming, She also noticed the gun on his hip and the weariness in his stance that spoke of long miles and longer troubles. "The barn is there," she said, pointing. "There is fresh hay and water. You are welcome to sleep in the loft if you need shelter." "Much obliged, madam." He started to turn away, then paused. "You out here alone?" It was a dangerous question, one that could mean many things. Helena's hand moved instinctively to the pocket where she kept a small pistol. "Does it matter?" He caught the movement and raised his hand slightly, non-threatening. "Only matters for knowing if I should check the perimeter before I settle in. These mountains get drifters this time of year, and not all of them are friendly." There was something in his tone, a genuine concern that caught her off guard. "I buried my husband this morning," she said bluntly. "So yes, I am alone." William Ellis's expression shifted, sympathy crossing his weathered features. "I am sorry for your loss." He said it like he meant it, like he knew what loss tasted like. "I will check the property line before dark then, if you do not mind, just to be safe." He did not wait for permission, just led his limping horse toward the barn with the careful gait of a man who knew how to move quiet and alert. Helena watched him go, then closed the door and returned to packing her belongings by lamplight. She told herself his arrival changed nothing, that come morning she would still leave, that one polite stranger was not a reason to stay. But that night, for the first time since Marcus died, she slept without nightmares. She woke to the smell of coffee and wood smoke, which made no sense because she had let the kitchen fire die the night before. Helena dressed quickly and emerged from the bedroom to find William Ellis standing by her stove, a pot of coffee brewing and what looked like salt pork sizzling in a pan. "Morning, madam," he said when he saw her. "Hope you do not mind. Figured I owed you breakfast for the hospitality." She should have been angry, should have been alarmed that this stranger had entered her home uninvited, but she was mostly just confused. "How did you get in?" "Door was unlocked," he said simply. "And I knocked. You were sleeping pretty deep." Helena realized she had forgotten to lock it last night, too exhausted and numb to think clearly, a dangerous mistake in this country. "You should not be in here. You are probably right." He did not look particularly apologetic as he poured coffee into 2 tin cups. "But the coffee is already made and it seems wasteful to throw it out. Sit. Eat. Then I will get out of your way." There was something disarming about his directness, the way he gave orders like suggestions and moved through her kitchen like he belonged there. Helena sat, more out of shock than agreement, and accepted the cup he offered. The coffee was strong and hot, better than anything she had made in weeks. "Where are you headed?" she asked, because it seemed safer than questioning why she was allowing this. "North, originally," William said, plating the salt pork with some hardtack he must have carried in his saddlebags. "Was working a ranch up near Sheridan, but the owner sold out to a big cattle company. They brought in their own crew. Been drifting since, looking for work." "Not much work in Buffalo this time of year," Helena said. "Most ranches are hunkered down for winter." "So I am learning." He sat across from her, his long legs barely fitting beneath the small table. "What about you? You staying on here?" "No," she said it firmly, definitively. "I am leaving today, going south. Running or starting over," the question was too perceptive, too close to the bone. Helena set down her coffee cup with a sharp click. "That is none of your business, Mr. Ellis." "William," he corrected. "And you are right, it is not. But I have been where you are, that look in your eyes, like you are trying to outrun your own shadow. You know nothing about me. I know you buried a husband yesterday, and you are packing to leave before the ground even settles. I know you sleep with a gun under your pillow, and you check the windows twice before you turn down the lamps. I know you are scared, though I cannot tell if it is of staying or going." Helena stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You need to leave." William held up his hands again, that same gesture of peace. Already planning on it. My horse should be able to make it to town if I walk him slow. I will be gone within the hour. He stood, gathering his dishes. But before I go, can I ask one thing? She crossed her arms, defensive. What? That fresh grave behind the house. Is that your husband? Ice flooded her veins. How did you? I checked the property last night, like I said, saw the turned earth. His blue eyes were steady, not accusing, just watching. Also saw the older grave about 50 yards east, half hidden in the scrub. 2 dead husbands on the same property seems unusual. Thomas is buried in the town cemetery, Helena said coldly. That grave was here when Marcus bought the land. A previous owner's child, he said. It was the truth, though she could see William weighing it, deciding whether to believe her. Finally, he nodded. All right then, I will leave you to your packing, Mrs. Parker. Helena Parker. Mrs. Parker. He touched his hat brim again, that old-fashioned courtesy that seemed at odds with the hardness in his face. Thank you for the shelter. I hope you find what you are looking for, wherever you are going. He walked out, and Helena told herself she was relieved. She finished her coffee, washed the dishes he had used, and returned to packing her trunk. But she found herself distracted, moving to the window more than once to watch William in the barn, checking his horse's hoof, running gentle hands down the animal's leg, talking to it in a low voice she could not quite hear. There was something about the way he moved, patient and careful, that reminded her of Marcus. But there was also something else, a coiled alertness that Marcus had never possessed, a sense that William Ellis had seen things that required more than patience to survive. She was still watching when he emerged from the barn, leading his horse slowly toward the road. He did not look back at the house, did not wave or acknowledge her, and Helena felt an unexpected twinge of something that might have been disappointment. Then she saw the riders. They came from the north, 3 of them, riding hard and fast down the road that led to the ranch. William saw them too and stopped, positioning himself between his horse and the approaching men. Helena could not hear what was said when they met, but she saw the way William's hand drifted toward his gun, saw the way the lead rider pointed at the ranch house, saw William shake his head firmly. The conversation grew heated. One of the other riders dismounted, and Helena saw him reach for William. What happened next was almost too fast to follow. William moved like lightning, twisting away from the grab and landing a punch that sent the man sprawling. The other 2 riders drew their guns, and William's hand flashed to his holster. Helena did not think. She grabbed her rifle from beside the door, threw it open, and fired a shot into the air. The crack of the Winchester got everyone's attention. The riders' horses spooked, dancing sideways, and all 4 men turned to look at her standing on the porch, rifle raised and ready. "This is private property," Helena called out, her voice steady despite the hammering of her heart. "State your business or move on." The lead rider, a lean man with a face like a hatchet, squinted at her. "This is between us and him, lady. Stay out of it. He is on my land, which makes it my business." She kept the rifle trained on them. "Who are you?" "Name is Crane. We are looking for a man who robbed a payroll up in Sheridan 3 weeks ago. This fellow matches the description." William's laugh was bitter. "I was working a cattle drive 3 weeks ago. Had nothing to do with any robbery." "So you say," Crane replied. "But you were seen in Sheridan the day before it happened, and you ran when the ranch sold out. That looks suspicious to me." "The ranch sold legitimate. I left because there was no more work. That is not running, that is common sense." Helena felt the situation spiraling toward violence, saw the way hands hovered near guns, the way the downed rider was climbing to his feet with murder in his eyes. She made a decision that would have seemed insane if she had stopped to think about it. He has been here for 2 weeks, she lied smoothly. Working my ranch. He could not have been in Sheridan because he was here, fixing my barn roof before winter. The lie hung in the cold air, and she saw William's surprised glance. Crane looked skeptical. That true? I just said it, did I not? Helena infused her voice with the irritation of a woman interrupted in her mourning. I buried my husband yesterday, and Mr. Ellis has been kind enough to help with the property work I cannot manage alone. If you are looking for a thief, look elsewhere. This man has been here. Crane studied her, then William, then the ranch house and barn. Helena could see him calculating, weighing the effort of calling her a liar against the risk of being wrong. Finally, he spat into the dirt. If we find out you are lying, we will be back. You will find I am not, Helena said firmly. Crane jerked his head at his men, and they mounted up, the one William had punched shooting a venomous glare before riding off. They thundered south, leaving dust and tension in their wake. William turned to face Helena, his expression unreadable. Why did you do that? I have no idea, she admitted, lowering the rifle. You could be a thief for all I know. I am not. I do not know that either. She walked down from the porch, suddenly aware of how reckless her action had been. But I know a false accusation when I see one, and those men were not law. Real law would have brought a warrant, not threats. Bounty hunters, William said. Or worse, the men who actually did the robbery looking to tie up loose ends by pinning it on someone else. He ran a hand through his hair, dislodging his hat. Either way, they will check your story. When they do not find anyone in Sheridan who can confirm I was here 2 weeks ago, they will be back. Helena's stomach dropped. I did not think of that. No, you did not. But he did not sound angry, just tired. Which means you just made yourself a target trying to help a stranger. Not the smartest move, Mrs. Parker. Apparently, I have a talent for poor decisions, she said sharply. My 2 dead husbands would attest to that if they could. William's expression softened. I need to leave, now, before they circle back. Your horse is still lame. I will walk if I have to. You will get 5 miles before they catch you. Helena looked at the road, then back at the ranch house, her mind racing. Unless we make the lie true. What? You stay. Actually stay, I mean. Work the ranch for real. When they come back to check, the neighbors will confirm seeing you here. Mrs. Chen at the general store will remember you buying supplies. It will not prove where you were 3 weeks ago, but it will make their accusation look weak. William stared at her like she had lost her mind. You just said you were leaving today. I am. Helena trailed off, realizing the impossibility of her own suggestion. This is ridiculous. Forget I said anything. No, wait. William stepped closer, his blue eyes intense. You help me establish an alibi, and I help you with whatever you are running from. Fair trade. I am not running from anything. You already told me you are leaving. A woman alone traveling south in November is asking for trouble. You need protection whether you admit it or not. I do not need a man to protect me, Helena said, her voice sharp with old wounds. Maybe not, William agreed. But an extra gun never hurts, and I owe you for what you just did. Let me pay that debt. I will work the ranch through winter, long enough to prove I am not your thief. Come spring, if you still want to leave, I will ride with you wherever you are going. Make sure you get there safe. Then we part ways, no obligations. It was insane. She knew nothing about this man except that he made good coffee and moved like a fighter. He could be exactly what those riders accused him of being. He could be dangerous in a dozen different ways she had not yet imagined. But he had also checked her property line without being asked, had made her breakfast, had tried to stand between her and trouble even when it meant risking his own neck. And there was something in his eyes, a bone-deep weariness she recognized, that made her think he understood what it meant to be hunted by your past. The ranch goes to Marcus's brother after probate, she said slowly. I have no legal right to hire you. Does the brother know that yet? He is in Montana. The lawyer sent word, but with winter coming, he probably will not arrive until spring. So until then, you are the lady of the house, and you can hire who you want. William's logic was sound even if it was legally questionable. I will work for room and board, no wages. That way there is no record to dispute. Helena looked at him, really looked, trying to see past the surface to whatever lay beneath. If I find out you are lying to me about any of this, I will shoot you myself. A smile ghosted across his face, the first she had seen. Noted, do we have a deal? She extended her hand, and after a moment he shook it. His grip was warm and calloused, firm without being crushing, and Helena felt something shift in her chest, some small seed of possibility she had thought long dead. We have a deal, Mr. Ellis. Welcome to the worst decision I have made all week. Just William, he said. And for what it is worth, I do not think it is the worst, might even turn out to be the best. Helena did not believe him, could not afford to believe him, but she did not pull her hand away as quickly as she should have. The first week was an exercise in careful distance. William slept in the barn loft, took his meals separate from Helena, and worked the property with a focused intensity that bordered on obsessive. He repaired the broken pulley that had killed Marcus, fixed loose boards on the porch, chopped enough firewood to last through 2 winters, and generally made himself indispensable in ways that made Helena both grateful and suspicious. She watched him from the kitchen window while she did her own work, preserving the last of the autumn vegetables, mending clothes, going through Marcus's belongings with the detached efficiency of someone who had done this before. William never came to the house uninvited, never presumed, never gave her reason to doubt her decision except for the simple fact that she knew almost nothing about him. On the 8th day, she brought coffee out to the barn where he was repairing a stall door. He looked up, surprised, and accepted the cup with a nod of thanks. You are going to work yourself to death at this rate, Helena observed. Earning my keep, William replied, testing the repaired hinge. You have earned it twice over already. She leaned against the stall post, studying him. Where did you learn to do all this? The carpentry, the ranch work, here and there. My father had a small farm in Kansas. Did not amount to much, but he knew his way around a hammer and saw. After he died, I hired on to bigger spreads, learned as I went. What brought you to Wyoming? William took a long drink of coffee, and Helena saw him weighing how much to share. Needed distance from some bad memories. Figured the mountains were as far as I could go without hitting ocean. Bad memories or bad people, both. He met her eyes directly. I was married once. Emily. She died 5 years back, fever. I was working a drive, 2 months gone, and by the time I got home she was already buried. Her family blamed me for not being there, and they were not wrong. I should have been. So I left, and I have been leaving ever since. The pain in his voice was real, raw, even after 5 years, and Helena felt an unexpected kinship. I understand needing distance. Your first husband, William said carefully. The deputy. What happened there? Helena stiffened. Who told you he was a deputy? Small town. People talk, especially to strangers buying supplies. Mrs. Chen at the store is very informative when you ask polite questions. You were investigating me. I was getting to know the area, William corrected. And yes, trying to understand who I was making a deal with. Can you blame me? She could not really, though it still felt invasive. Thomas was not a good man. He died, and I was glad. That is all you need to know. Fair enough. William set down his coffee and picked up a plane to smooth the new board he was fitting. We all have things we do not want to talk about. They worked in silence for a while, Helena watching the smooth, practiced motions of his hands shaping wood. There was something meditative about it, calming, and she found herself relaxing despite her wariness. "Why did you really help me that day?" William asked suddenly. "With those riders?" "You did not know me. For all you knew, I could have been exactly what they said." Helena considered the question, reaching for honesty. "Because I know what it is like to be accused of something and have no way to prove your innocence. Because those men felt wrong in a way I cannot explain. And because—" She hesitated, then pushed forward. "Because you fed me breakfast and checked my property and did not ask for anything in return. That felt like it meant something." William stopped working and looked at her, really looked, and Helena felt the weight of that gaze like a physical thing. "It did mean something. It means I am not going to let you down." "People always let you down eventually," Helena said, the words bitter and automatic. "Maybe," William allowed. "But that does not mean you stop trying. Second chances exist, Helena, sometimes even third ones." The use of her first name, casual and warm, sent an unexpected flutter through her chest. She covered it with a frown. "I thought we were keeping this professional, Mr. Ellis." "We are," he said, but he was almost smiling. "Professionally speaking, I think you should call me William. Mr. Ellis makes me sound like a banker." Despite herself, Helena felt the corner of her mouth twitch. "Fine, William, but do not get comfortable. Come spring, this arrangement ends." "Yes, madam," he said, and went back to his work, leaving Helena to wonder why the thought of spring suddenly felt much farther away than she wanted it to. November bled into December, and the first real snow came, blanketing the ranch in white silence. Helena woke to find William had already cleared a path from the house to the barn, to the well, to the woodpile. He had brought in extra firewood and left it stacked neatly by the kitchen stove, had checked on the 2 remaining horses and made sure they were warm and fed. She found him in the barn, mucking stalls, his breath misting in the cold air. "You did not have to do all that," she said. "Snow was not going to shovel itself." He leaned on the pitchfork, his face ruddy from exertion. "Besides, I was up anyway. Bad dreams. About Emily. About a lot of things." He returned to work, clearly not wanting to elaborate. Helena understood that too. She had her own collection of night terrors, though they had lessened since William arrived. She told herself it was because she felt safer with someone else on the property, not because of William specifically. But she knew she was lying. The truth was, she was starting to like having him around. He had a quiet competence that was nothing like Thomas's bluster or Marcus's gentle ineffectiveness. William simply did what needed doing without fanfare or complaint. He also had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard at odd moments, making her laugh when she least expected it. Like the morning she found him trying to catch the barn cat, a feral orange tom that had shown up looking for mice. "He just needs to trust me," William insisted, nursing a scratched hand. "He is a cat," Helena pointed out. "Trust is not in their nature. Everything can trust if you give it reason to." William tried again, moving slow and patient, and to Helena's amazement, the cat eventually allowed itself to be touched, then picked up, then settled into purring in William's arms like they had been friends for years. "How did you do that?" she asked, genuinely impressed. "Same way you earn anyone's trust. Show up, be consistent, do not make sudden moves, and prove you are not going to hurt them." He was stroking the cat's matted fur, working out tangles with gentle fingers. "It works on animals and people both." Helena thought about that a lot over the following days, watching the way William moved through the world with that same patient consistency. He was earning her trust whether she wanted to admit it or not, and it terrified her almost as much as it comforted her. Christmas approached, and Helena found herself in the unfamiliar position of wanting to mark the occasion. She had not celebrated properly since before her parents died. The holidays just another day to survive with Thomas, an awkward obligation with Marcus. But something about this year felt different. She baked bread and made a venison stew from a deer William had hunted. She even pulled out the bottle of whiskey Marcus had been saving and set 2 glasses on the table. When William came in from evening chores, stamping snow from his boots, he stopped short at the sight. "What is all this?" "It is Christmas Eve," Helena said, feeling suddenly foolish. "I thought we could have a proper meal, if you want." William's expression softened into something that made her heart skip. "I would like that very much." They ate together at the small kitchen table, actually talking for once instead of maintaining careful silence. William told stories about cattle drives and cowboy pranks, about a horse that learned to open gates and a cook who made coffee so strong it could strip paint. Helena found herself laughing, genuine and free, in a way she had not in years. "What about you?" William asked, refilling their whiskey glasses. "What did you want to be before life got in the way?" Helena had to think about that. "I wanted to teach, I think. I liked books, liked the idea of helping children learn. But my parents died and Thomas happened, and that dream seemed silly after a while." "It is not silly," William said firmly. "Dreams are what keep us human." "What is your dream, then?" He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his glass. "I used to want a place of my own. Nothing fancy, just some land and a house and maybe a family to fill it. But after Emily died, that dream felt like tempting fate, like the universe would just take it away again. So you stopped dreaming." "I stopped wanting things I could lose." He looked up at her, his blue eyes serious. "Until recently, anyway." The weight in those words settled between them, heavy with implication. Helena knew she should deflect, should reinforce the boundaries they had established, but the whiskey and the holiday and the warmth of the fire made her brave. "What changed?" she asked softly. "I met a woman who feeds me breakfast even when she is terrified, who lies to bounty hunters to protect a stranger, who tries so hard not to hope that it breaks my heart a little." William reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of hers. "I started thinking maybe second chances are not just about replacing what you lost. Maybe they are about finding something completely different and being smart enough to recognize it." Helena stared at his hand, so close to hers, and felt the walls she had built trembling. "William, I am not asking you to," he interrupted gently. "I am just saying I see you, Helena, the real you underneath all that armor, and I am not going anywhere unless you tell me to." She should tell him to, should protect them both from the inevitable heartbreak. But instead she closed the distance and took his hand, felt his fingers curl around hers, warm and solid and real. "I am still leaving in the spring," she whispered. "Then we will leave together," he said. "But right now it is Christmas Eve and I am grateful to be here with you." They sat like that, hands joined across the table while the fire crackled and the snow fell soft outside, and Helena felt the first fragile shoots of hope pushing through the frozen ground of her heart. Winter deepened, and with it, something shifted between them. They were not courting, not exactly, but they were not employer and employee either. They existed in some undefined space, growing closer in increments so small Helena barely noticed, until she realized she was waiting for the sound of William's boots on the porch, was cooking meals with him in mind, was sharing stories about her childhood and her parents, and the person she used to be before grief and violence reshaped her. William reciprocated, opening up about his own ghosts. He told her about growing up poor in Kansas, about a father who drank too much and a mother who died too young. About Emily, who he had met at a church social and married within 6 months, young and convinced love could conquer anything. About learning too late that love needed presence, not just promises, and carrying that guilt like stones in his pockets ever since. You think she would have forgiven you? Helena asked one January afternoon as they worked together to inventory the winter supplies. Eventually, maybe, William said, checking off items on a list. Emily was good at forgiving. It was one of the things I loved about her. He paused, then added quietly, but I do not think I have forgiven myself yet. I understand that, Helena said. After Thomas died, people said I did what I had to do, that it was self-defense. But I still see his face sometimes, still remember the weight of the gun. It does not matter that he was trying to kill me. I still took a life. William set down the ledger and turned to face her fully. You survived, Helena. That is not the same as murder. Try telling that to my conscience at 3 in the morning. Then tell it this. You survived so you could have another chance, and another one after that. You survived for this moment, right here, and every moment that comes after. She wanted to believe him, wanted to let go of the guilt that had shadowed her for 3 years. How do you do that? How do you keep believing in chances when life keeps taking things away? Because the alternative is giving up, William said simply. And I am not ready to do that, not anymore. He was looking at her in a way that made her breath catch. And Helena realized they were standing very close, close enough that she could see the darker ring around his blue irises, could smell the winter cold still clinging to his coat. Close enough to kiss if she was brave enough to close the distance. William, she started, but did not know how to finish. I know, he said softly. I know you are scared. I know you have been hurt. I know you have every reason not to trust this, whatever this is. But Helena, I need you to know something. What? I am falling in love with you. Maybe I have been since the moment you fired that rifle to save my neck. And I know that is probably the last thing you want to hear, and I know it complicates everything, but I could not keep carrying it around without saying it out loud. Helena's heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to protect herself, to shut this down before it could hurt her. But there was another voice too, quieter but growing stronger, that whispered, what if? What if he means it? What if this is different? What if you let yourself believe in third chances? I do not know how to do this, she admitted, her voice shaking. I do not know how to be loved without it turning into something terrible. Then let me show you, William said. Let me prove that not all love comes with fists or demands or conditions. Let me be patient while you learn to trust it. And if I cannot, if I am too broken, you are not broken, he said fiercely. You are surviving. There is a difference. Helena felt tears prick her eyes, hot and unexpected. When was the last time someone had seen her as anything other than cursed or damaged? When had anyone looked past her history to see her simply as a woman worth loving? I am terrified, she whispered. So am I, William admitted. But I would rather be terrified with you than safe and alone. She kissed him then, closing the gap between them in one reckless leap of faith. His arms came around her immediately, holding her close but not tight, giving her room to breathe even as his mouth moved against hers with a desperate tenderness that made her knees weak. He tasted like coffee and hope, and Helena felt something inside her crack open, letting in light for the first time in years. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, William pressed his forehead to hers. Was that all right? Helena laughed, surprised by the joy bubbling up in her chest. Yes, it was definitely all right. Good, he said, and kissed her again, slower this time, savoring it. They stood wrapped together in the cold storage room, surrounded by sacks of flour and dried beans, and Helena thought that maybe, just maybe, she could believe in this. In him. In the possibility that her story did not have to end in tragedy. January turned to February, and the worst of winter settled over Wyoming like a frozen fist. The temperature dropped so low that water froze in the well overnight, and William had to break through ice every morning to get to the precious liquid below. They burned through firewood at an alarming rate, and Helena worried they would run out before spring, though William assured her they had plenty. "I chopped extra back in November," he reminded her. "I planned for this." He planned for everything she was learning. William thought 3 steps ahead, anticipated problems before they became crises, and worked with a steady reliability that made her feel safe in a way she never had before. It was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. They slept in separate rooms still, maintaining some pretense of propriety, even though the entire situation was beyond propriety at this point. But the walls between them grew thinner each night, and Helena found herself lying awake, listening to William move around in the barn loft, wondering what it would be like to wake up beside him, to share more than just meals and conversation. The decision came during a blizzard in late February that howled around the ranch for 3 days straight. The wind was so fierce it tore part of the barn roof loose, and William went out to secure it before the whole structure could be damaged. He was gone for over an hour, and by the time he staggered back to the house, he was half frozen and shaking so hard he could barely hold the door handle. Helena pulled him inside, swearing, and immediately started stripping off his ice-crusted coat and gloves. "You fool, you could have died out there, had to save the barn," he chattered through blue lips. "The barn is not worth your life." She was terrified and furious, dragging him toward the fireplace. His skin was like ice and his fingers were an alarming white. "Sit. Do not move." She built up the fire to roaring, then ran to get every blanket in the house. When she returned, William was still shaking violently, and Helena knew with cold certainty that blankets alone would not be enough. He needed body heat, needed warmth faster than the fire could provide. She did not let herself think about it too much. She wrapped them both in blankets and pulled William against her, sharing her warmth, rubbing his arms and back to encourage circulation. He was frozen solid, and for several terrifying minutes, Helena thought she was going to lose him to the cold. "Stay with me," she commanded, holding him tighter. "Do not you dare freeze to death in my house, William Ellis. I will never forgive you." "Cold," he managed, his teeth chattering. I know, just hold on." Gradually, painfully, his shaking began to ease. Color returned to his fingers and lips, and his breathing steadied. After what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes, he stopped shivering and went limp against her, exhausted. "Better?" Helena asked, still holding him close. "Much," he murmured into her shoulder. "Thank you." "You are an idiot," she said, but there was no heat in it, only relief. "Probably." He pulled back enough to look at her, his blue eyes serious despite his obvious exhaustion. "But I am your idiot if you will have me." Helena felt something shift in her chest, some final wall crumbling. She had almost lost him tonight, had felt the terror of watching another person she cared about slip away, and it had crystallized something important. Life was too short and too uncertain to waste on fear. If she was going to lose people regardless, she would rather lose them having loved them fully than having held herself back. "Stay with me," she said. "Not in the barn, here, in the house." William searched her face. "Helena, I mean it. I cannot keep pretending there is distance between us. I cannot keep acting like I do not care when the thought of losing you makes me feel like I am drowning. I am tired of being afraid. I want to try, William. I want to believe in this." His smile was like sunrise, slow and warm and full of promise. "Are you sure?" "No," she admitted. "But I am willing to be unsure together if you are." William cupped her face in his still cold hands and kissed her with a gentleness that made her want to cry. "I am willing. I am so willing you have no idea." That night, for the first time in her life, Helena fell asleep in the arms of a man she actually wanted there, and she did not have nightmares. She had dreams instead, sweet and formless, of a future that might actually be worth living. Spring came slowly to Wyoming, the snow retreating inch by stubborn inch as March brought warmer winds and the first brave hints of green. The ranch came alive again, and with it, the reality that Marcus's brother would be arriving soon to claim his inheritance. Helena had almost forgotten about that particular problem, too wrapped up in the small daily joy of sharing her life with William. They had fallen into an easy rhythm, working the property together, cooking meals side by side, sitting up late by the fire talking about everything and nothing. William had moved his things into the house, into Helena's bedroom, and she woke each morning still slightly surprised to find him there, warm and solid and real. But reality could not be ignored forever. The letter came in early April, delivered by a rider from town. Marcus's brother Jacob would arrive within the week to assess the property and make arrangements for its sale or management. Helena's time at the ranch was officially ending. "We could go to California like you planned," William suggested that night as they lay in bed, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her shoulder. "Start fresh somewhere warm. Or we could go north," Helena countered. "Montana, maybe. I have heard there is good land opening up for homesteading." "Wherever we go together," William said firmly. "That is what matters." Helena turned to face him, studying the planes of his face in the low lamplight. "Are you sure about this? About me? You could stay here, find work on one of the big ranches." "You do not have to tie yourself to a woman with my history." "Your history is what made you who you are," William said. "And who you are is exactly who I want. Stop trying to give me reasons to leave, Helena. It is not going to work." She kissed him, pouring all her tangled feelings into it, gratitude and fear and love and hope. "I love you," she said when they broke apart. "I do not think I have said that clearly enough. I love you, William. You and your stubbornness and your terrible coffee and the way you rescued that barn cat." "My coffee is not terrible," he protested, grinning. "It is aggressively mediocre at best. Hurtful but fair." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose. "I love you too, more than I thought I could love anyone again. You gave me a third chance when I did not even know I needed one." "Third chances," Helena mused. "I like the sound of that. Implies we are both allowed to have made mistakes." "Lots of them," William agreed. "And we will probably make more, but we will make them together." It was a promise neither of them could guarantee, but Helena found she believed it anyway. That was what love was, she realized. Not certainty, but willingness. The choice to show up and try, even when fear whispered that it would all end in pain. Jacob Parker arrived on a Thursday afternoon, looking travel-worn and curious. He was younger than Helena expected, maybe 30, with Marcus's same gentle eyes but a more practical set to his shoulders. William stood beside Helena on the porch as Jacob dismounted, a united front. "You must be Helena," Jacob said, removing his hat politely. "I am sorry we are meeting under these circumstances. Marcus spoke highly of you in his letters. That surprised her. He wrote to you about me. Some. He said you were still healing from a difficult past, but he hoped he could help." Jacob's expression was sympathetic. "I am sorry you lost him so soon." Helena felt the automatic guilt rise but pushed it down. She had tried with Marcus, had given him what she could, and it was not her fault that love could not be forced. "Thank you. Marcus was a good man." "He was." Jacob turned his attention to William, sizing him up with a rancher's practiced eye. "And you are William Ellis. I have been helping Helena manage the property through the winter." Jacob's eyebrows rose slightly, but he did not comment on the obvious implications of that statement. "I appreciate that. The place looks well maintained." He glanced around the yard, taking in the repaired structures and neatly stacked wood. You do good work. It is a good property, William replied evenly. Should sell well if that is your intention. It is, Jacob confirmed. I have my own ranch in Montana, and I cannot manage two. I will inventory everything, settle the estate, and put it on the market, hopefully have a buyer by summer. He looked at Helena. I know legally you do not have a claim, but Marcus would have wanted you taken care of. I will make sure you receive a fair settlement from the sale. Helena blinked, surprised. That is generous, but not necessary. It is what is right, Jacob said simply. You were his wife, even if briefly. You deserve something for your time here. It was more grace than Helena had expected, and she found herself liking this man despite the awkwardness of the situation. Thank you, truly. They helped Jacob settle in, offering him the guest room and sharing a meal while he outlined his plans. The estate would take a few weeks to fully process, but he saw no reason Helena and William could not stay through the transition if they wanted. Where will you go after? Jacob asked, passing the potatoes. Not sure yet, William said, glancing at Helena. We have been discussing options. If you are looking for work, I could use a good hand in Montana, Jacob offered. From what I have seen here, you know your business, Mr. Ellis. And Helena, if you wanted to come along, my cook just quit. The job is yours if you want it. Helena and William exchanged a look. It was not what they had planned, but it was an opportunity, a path forward that did not involve starting from absolute nothing. Can we think about it? Helena asked. Of course. The offer stands as long as you need. Jacob smiled. I get the sense you two are trying to figure out your next chapter. Take your time. Lord knows life does not give us enough of that. That night, Helena and William lay tangled together, discussing the unexpected offer. It would be stable, William pointed out. And Montana is supposed to be beautiful. But we would be working for someone else, Helena said, not building something of our own. We could save money, though, work a few years, then buy our own place. William played with a strand of her dark hair, winding it around his finger. It is not a perfect solution, but it is a start. Helena considered it. She had spent so much time running, trying to escape her past, that the idea of actually planning a future felt foreign. But maybe that was the point. Maybe third chances were about more than just survival. Maybe they were about building something intentional, something worth keeping. All right, she decided. We will go to Montana, work for Jacob, save our money, and when we are ready, we will find our own piece of land and build our own life. Together, William confirmed. Together, Helena agreed and sealed it with a kiss. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Jacob proved to be efficient and fair, settling Marcus's affairs with a methodical care that Helena appreciated. He hired an appraiser, met with potential buyers, and arranged for the livestock to be sold or transported to Montana. Helena packed her belongings, which fit into a single trunk and 2 saddlebags, a stark reminder of how little she had accumulated in her 26 years. But she also packed hope and possibility, things that took up no physical space but weighed heavy in her heart. William worked alongside Jacob, showing him the property's quirks and helping prepare for the sale. The 2 men developed an easy camaraderie, and Helena could see Jacob's respect for William growing. It was clear the job offer was genuine, not just politeness. On their last night at the ranch, Helena walked the property alone, saying goodbye to the ghosts that lived there. She visited Marcus's grave, laying wildflowers she had picked that morning. I am sorry I could not love you the way you deserved, she told the headstone, but I hope you are at peace. I hope you have forgiven me for being honest about what I could not give. She touched the cold stone gently. Thank you for trying. It mattered, even if it did not work out the way either of us hoped. She found William waiting for her by the corral, watching the sunset paint the Bighorn Mountains gold and purple. He pulled her into his arms without speaking, just holding her as the last light faded. "Any regrets?" he asked softly. Helena thought about it honestly. "Only that it took me so long to believe I deserved this, deserved you." "You have always deserved it," William said. "You just needed to see it yourself." "I am starting to," she admitted, slowly. "Some days I still expect it all to fall apart." "Some days it might," William said pragmatically. "Life is not perfect, Helena. We will fight, we will struggle, we will have days where we wonder if we made the right choice. But we will also have days like this, where everything feels exactly right. And I think the good will outweigh the bad if we let it." "Third chances," Helena murmured. "Third chances," William agreed. "Fourth, fifth, as many as we need. That is what love is, giving each other unlimited chances to try again." They rode out the next morning with Jacob, leaving the ranch to its new future while they headed toward their own. The journey to Montana took 2 weeks, following old trails through mountain passes still slick with late spring snow. Helena rode beside William, their horses nearly touching, and felt more free than she had in her entire life. Jacob's ranch was larger than Marcus's had been, sprawling across a beautiful valley with the Rocky Mountains rising sharp and magnificent to the west. The main house was solid timber, the barns well built, the whole operation clearly run by someone who knew what they were doing. "Welcome to the Parker Ranch," Jacob said as they crested the hill overlooking the property. "It is not fancy, but it is home." Helena thought it was beautiful, thought this valley could be a fresh start, thought maybe Wyoming and its ghosts could finally be left behind. They settled into ranch life with surprising ease. William took to the work naturally, his skills and experience making him invaluable. Jacob came to rely on him more and more, eventually promoting him to foreman within 6 months. The other hands respected William's quiet authority, and the ranch prospered under his capable management. Helena found her own place in the operation. She cooked for the crew, managed the household accounts, and discovered she had a talent for breeding horses. Jacob let her work with the ranch's mares, and by the end of the first year, she had produced 2 foals that sold for impressive prices. But more than the work, Helena found community. The other ranch families welcomed her, the women especially. She made friends for the first time since her parents died, women who did not whisper about curses or judge her history. She attended church socials and barn dances, laughed and gossiped, and slowly became part of the fabric of this new place. William proposed on Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after their first real conversation over whiskey and venison stew. He did it simply, without fanfare, presenting her with a ring he had saved for months to buy. "I know we are already living as husband and wife," he said, kneeling in the snow outside the main house. "But I want to make it official. I want everyone to know that you are mine and I am yours, for as long as we both shall live. Helena Parker, will you marry me?" Helena looked down at him, this man who had taught her to hope again, who had been patient with her fears and celebrated her victories, and loved her with a steadiness she had never known existed. She thought about second chances and third ones, about the long, strange road that had brought them together, about the future they were building one day at a time. "Yes," she said, pulling him to his feet. "Yes, absolutely yes." They married in the spring of 1880, a small ceremony at the ranch with Jacob standing as witness and the whole crew in attendance. Helena wore a simple cream dress and carried wildflowers, and William could not stop smiling the entire day. They spoke vows about partnership and patience, about choosing each other every day regardless of what came. And when the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, when William kissed her in front of God and everyone, Helena felt something settle deep in her bones. This was real. This was hers. This was the life she had stopped believing she could have. The years that followed were not perfect. They fought sometimes, about money and work and the 100 small frictions that came with sharing a life. They weathered drought and harsh winters, injured horses and sick cattle, all the challenges that came with ranch life. But they weathered it together, and that made all the difference. William proved to be exactly what he had promised: steady, reliable, endlessly patient with her occasional spirals into fear. When she woke from nightmares about Thomas, he held her until she calmed. When grief for her parents hit unexpectedly, he let her cry without trying to fix it. He gave her space to be complicated, to be healing, to be human, and Helena learned to do the same for him. She recognized the signs when his guilt about Emily surfaced, knew to give him room to process it. She celebrated his victories and cushioned his failures, and slowly, together, they built a partnership that felt unshakable. In 1882, they had saved enough to make Jacob an offer. They wanted to buy a piece of his land, a beautiful section of the valley near a creek, and build their own home there. Jacob agreed immediately, selling it to them for a fair price and helping them get started. They built a small house together that summer, just 2 rooms and a loft, but it was theirs. William did most of the construction while Helena planned the interior, and the day they moved in, she stood in the empty main room and cried. "What is wrong?" William asked, concerned. "Nothing," Helena said, laughing through her tears. "Everything is right. This is ours, William, actually ours. No one can take it away." He pulled her close, understanding. "No one can take it away," he confirmed. "This is our home, our future, everything we have built." They made love that night on a blanket on the floor of their empty house, christening it with joy and laughter, and the kind of intimacy that came from truly knowing another person. And afterward, wrapped in William's arms, Helena felt completely at peace for the first time in her life. Their daughter was born in the spring of 1883, a squalling red-faced bundle they named Emily Rose Emily for the woman William had loved first, Rose for Helena's mother. It was a way of honoring the past while building the future, and when William held his daughter for the first time, he wept. "I never thought I would have this again," he admitted, his voice thick. "I thought I had lost my chance." "Third chances," Helena reminded him softly. "We both got them." Emily was followed by a son 2 years later, Thomas Jacob, named for Helena's father and the brother-in-law who had given them their start. And then another daughter in 1888, Grace Marie, because by then they believed in grace and new beginnings. Helena discovered she loved being a mother, loved teaching her children to read and ride and be kind. She finally got to teach like she had once dreamed, even if her classroom was just 3 students in a small ranch house. William was a devoted father, patient and playful, and watching him with their children made Helena fall in love with him all over again. The ranch prospered. William's skill and hard work turned their small piece of land into a thriving operation. They ran cattle and horses, sold cream and butter, and slowly expanded their holdings. By 1890, they had enough to build a larger house, a real home with separate bedrooms for the children and a proper kitchen where Helena could cook and bake to her heart's content. Jacob remained a close friend, a frequent visitor who spoiled his nieces and nephews shamelessly. He never remarried, dedicating himself to his ranch, but he seemed content with his bachelor life. He told Helena once that seeing her and William together had restored his faith in love, and that was enough for him. The town of Buffalo felt like a distant memory, though Helena occasionally thought about the woman she had been there, young, scared, convinced she was cursed. She thought about Marcus sometimes too, with gratitude for what he had tried to give her even if she could not accept it then. She hoped he would be happy knowing she had eventually found what she needed, and William was her constant. They grew older together, their hands calloused from work, their faces weathered by sun and wind. They laughed over morning coffee and solved problems over dinner. They taught their children about resilience and second chances, about choosing love even when it was hard, about building something worth keeping. One evening in 1895, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emily and Thomas arguing good-naturedly while little Grace chased the barn cat, William took Helena's hand. "Do you remember when we met?" he asked. "You made terrible coffee and I lied to bounty hunters for you," Helena replied, smiling. "Hard to forget." "I was so lost then," William said, "just drifting, trying to outrun my past, and then you fired that rifle and everything changed." "I was lost too," Helena admitted. "I thought leaving was the only answer, that I could escape what I had been through if I just moved far enough away." "But you could not escape it," William said gently. "You had to work through it. We both did." "Together," Helena added. "I could not have done it alone. Neither could I." William raised her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. "You saved me, Helena, not just that day with the bounty hunters. Every day since. You taught me how to hope again." Helena felt tears prick her eyes, the good kind. "You did the same for me. You made me believe in third chances." "And fourth and fifth," William said, grinning. "I have lost count at this point. Infinite chances," Helena decided. "That is what we have, as many as we need for as long as we live." "I will take that deal," William said, and kissed her while their children played, and the Montana sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and rose. Helena looked at her life, at the home they had built, the family they had created, the love they had nurtured through hard work and patience, and felt overwhelming gratitude. She had not believed in second chances, had actively fought against them, convinced she did not deserve happiness or peace. But William had come along and proven her wrong. He had shown her that the past did not have to define the future, that love did not have to hurt, that healing was possible if you were brave enough to try. He had given her not just a second chance, but a third one, and she had seized it with both hands and built a life beyond her wildest dreams. The years continued to pass, bringing both joy and sorrow, as all years do. They lost Jacob to a heart attack in 1898, mourning the man who had been brother and friend and benefactor. They weathered economic downturns and harsh winters, sick animals and crop failures. Emily grew up and married a rancher's son from the next valley over, giving them grandchildren who filled the house with chaos and laughter. Thomas decided he wanted to be a veterinarian and left for school back east, making them proud even as they missed him. Grace, their youngest, showed signs of being as horse-mad as her mother, spending every free moment in the barn. Through it all, Helena and William remained each other's anchor. They celebrated 40 years of marriage in 1920, surrounded by children and grandchildren, and Helena could barely recognize the scared young widow she had been. That woman seemed like someone from another lifetime, someone who had survived impossible things and emerged stronger on the other side. "What do you think about when you look back?" Grace asked her once, helping her shell peas on the porch. Helena considered the question carefully. "I think about choices," she said finally. "About how easy it would have been to give up, to stay bitter and afraid, but I chose differently. I chose to try again, even when it terrified me." "Because of Father?" Grace asked. "Because of him," Helena agreed. "But also because of me. I had to decide I was worth the effort. Your father helped me see that, but I had to do the work." Grace was quiet for a moment, processing. "Do you ever regret the hard parts? The men before Father, the things you went through?" "I regret the pain," Helena said honestly. "But I do not regret the lessons. Everything I survived made me who I am." And who I am is someone who knows the value of love that does not hurt, of partnership built on respect, of second and third and infinite chances. You and Father make it look easy, Grace observed. Helena laughed. It is not easy, sweetheart. It is work, every single day, but it is worth it. That is what we try to show you, not that love is easy, but that it is worth the effort. William emerged from the barn then, still moving with purpose despite his 70 years. He caught Helena's eye and smiled, that same smile that had made her heart skip 20 years ago, and she felt the familiar flutter of affection and desire and deep, abiding love. This was what third chances looked like, she thought. Not perfect, but real. Not easy, but worth every struggle. They had built something that would outlast them, a legacy of choosing love over fear, hope over despair, second chances and third ones, and as many as it took to get it right. William climbed the porch steps and dropped a kiss on her head before settling into his chair. What are we talking about? Love, Grace said, and second chances. Ah, my favorite topics, William said, winking at Helena. Did I ever tell you about the day your mother saved my life? Only about 100 times, Grace said, but she was smiling. Well, let me tell you again, William said, launching into the familiar story. But Helena did not mind the repetition. She loved hearing him tell it, loved the way his eyes still lit up when he talked about that day, loved knowing that she had been brave enough to take a chance on a stranger with summer sky eyes. They sat together on the porch as the sun set over the Montana Valley they had made their own, and Helena felt complete. She had been through fire and come out forged into something stronger. She had lost faith and found it again. She had believed herself cursed and discovered she was simply human, capable of being hurt but also capable of healing. And she had learned, slowly and painfully but undeniably true, that second chances were real. Third chances too. As many chances as you needed if you were brave enough to keep trying, keep hoping, keep choosing love even when fear whispered that it would all end in heartbreak. William reached for her hand as the first stars appeared, and Helena laced their fingers together, thinking about that Christmas Eve so long ago when they had first made this connection. She thought about all the choices that had led to this moment, both the terrible ones and the beautiful ones, and felt grateful for every single one. Because they had brought her here, to this porch, to this man, to this life she had stopped believing she could have. And that was worth everything, all the pain and fear and doubt, because it had led to love that lasted, to a family that thrived, to a future built on the foundation of believing in one more chance. The cowboy had come when she had stopped believing in second chances, and he had made her believe in third ones too. And in doing so, he had given her everything she had ever needed but never thought to ask for. A home, a partnership, a love that did not hurt but healed. As the stars came out one by one over their Montana Valley, Helena squeezed William's hand and thought, for maybe the millionth time but with no less wonder, that she was exactly where she was meant to be. And that was the greatest gift of all.